I am looking on my iPad at a Facebook post in a vegan activist group where someone was kind enough to post a picture of my book and say to somebody, "This might help you." Thank you to everybody who's doing that. I appreciate it. I appreciate the sales, of course, but it just makes me feel good that you guys are really finding value out of what I've written, and it makes me, okay, enough of that. Enough of the gratitude crap. All right. But the comments that came after that were really quite nice, so flattering, but there was a couple people, I got the impression they were atheists, don't know for sure. I guess that's making a judgment, but if I'm wrong, obviously I'm wrong, but I don't know them, they don't know me, doesn't matter. But it was all in the way they wrote the things that I kind of came to that conclusion. They said their complaint was, this guy, the author, doesn't know what he's talking about, because it's clearly written in Leviticus chapter 11 that God tells us what animals we can and cannot eat. Well, he made a couple mistakes there. And those mistakes, if he would have read my book, would have been cleared up if he had just read that chapter about the 5 W's that I write. A lot of Christian apologists will call it hermeneutics. That's a fancy word. I call it my 5 W's. It's just getting the who, what, where, when, and why that a verse was written. Okay? Because when you understand who wrote it, who it was written to, how the people who it was written to understood it, what was the religious and political, customs of the time, these things all play into what's going on. So in Leviticus chapter 11, God gives a list of animals that you shall eat, that are clean or unclean. All right. That right there sounds like God saying you shall eat these. But you don't start a book in the middle. Leviticus has 27 chapters. All right? This is chapter 11. You don't understand what's going on in chapter 11 unless you read chapters 1 through 10 prior. And you really need to look at Leviticus chapter 1, verse 1, 2, and 3 to understand who this is being directed to and what they were like. I'm going to read it to you right now. And God called unto Moses from the tabernacle and said to Moses, "Speak to the children of Israel." That's our first W, 5 of the 5 W's, the who. It's Moses. And who's he told to speak to? The children of Israel. This was not meant for you and me today. This was not meant for people in Chicago or Cleveland or anywhere else. This was just meant for Moses to tell the people of Israel. See that right there? You know that at the beginning. If you read the beginning of Leviticus chapter 1. Let me keep going. Into verse 2, where it says, "Speak to the children of Israel, and say unto them, if any man bring an offering unto the Lord, you shall bring an offering of your cattle," yada yada. The key word there is if. You see, here we are, Leviticus chapter 1. We're going to go, this guy's complaining or bringing up Leviticus chapter 11. He doesn't understand right here in chapter 1, God saying if. This was a group of people, Israel, that was already doing animal sacrifices, any kind of sacrifice they wanted, any place they wanted, anywhere, in any way they wanted. God is restricting their sacrifices, their ability to sacrifice. So in Genesis chapter 1, not only is he restricting it, he's saying he doesn't even want it. He's saying, if this is you. Now, a lot of people are saying to me, you're really holding on to that 2-letter word, if, awfully hard, Steve, to make your point. I can do it again. Let's go into the verse 3. Leviticus chapter 1, verse 3. I've already said in verse 2, he says if, but in verse 3, he says, if his offering be a burnt sacrifice of the herd, let him offer a male without blemish. He shall offer it of his own voluntary will at the door of the tabernacle. He shall offer it of his own voluntary will. You see, we are talking about animal sacrifices that are done by a person's own voluntary will. It's not God's requirement. So by the time we get to Leviticus chapter 11, where he says, you shall eat these animals, we got to deal with the if and the voluntary. It's the person doesn't have to do it. God's not saying, I want you to do sacrifices or I'm going to blast you off the earth with a lightning bolt. He's saying, if you do a sacrifice, it's of your own free will. Nowhere does it say God wanted it. He's just now like, if you're going to do it, it's your own free will. by chapter 11, he's saying, this is how you shall do it. These are the animals you shall sacrifice. And he's saying, these are the animals you shall eat, because sacrifice is so tied in to eating animals. Remember, at that time, you weren't supposed to eat an animal unless you sacrificed it to God first. You were only getting leftovers. Okay, it had to be killed in a certain way, in a specific formula. You couldn't just go out and shoot a squirrel and chow down on it. So there's so much to do there, but you don't start a book in the middle if you really want to understand the context. You got to go back to the beginning. And even the beginning of Leviticus would be in Exodus, when you find out who that the children of Israel are, because it's the people, the group of people that were the slaves to Pharaoh at the time, that were led, that Moses got out. So that's another video that I did, or I'll probably do 10 more videos on that. But at least you got the idea. So that if the... But also, I'm going to take one more look at that list of the clean and unclean, because I know you activists, are going to have to be forced to defend this view. They're going to say, but God still said we could eat animals. He's saying he gave you a list of animals. Yeah, but what did that list do? This was a group of people that were eating any animals they wanted at any time and purpose. God now eliminated so many animals. So many, by saying these are clean and these are unclean. Think about it. It didn't increase the meat consumption. It limited it. It restricted the meat consumption. So you got a lot to work with those two. But I hope that helps. Leviticus is a hard book to read. It really is. There's just so much to it, and it doesn't apply to us. I think in my book I list 11 times, but I'm pretty sure there's more than that in the book of Leviticus, where it says, Moses, tell the people of Israel, where it's just beyond question that it wasn't meant for us. We can learn from it. All the Bible is meant for us to learn from. But specifically, laws like that, they were never written to us. All right, that's it. I gotta scoot my way over. I have to go way back here so I can get in the camera, but then I gotta come all the way up here to hit the off button. I gotta do something about my system here.